Welcome to Get On With It, Inspiration for Life and Leadership. I'm your host, Sue MacArthur, President of Strategic Talent Management. We've all met them, the people who have a presence and a unique point of view that make us want to lean in and say, tell me more. In this podcast, we celebrate these people and provide a platform through which they can share their insights. Whether you lead a company, a community organization, or just your own life, we offer you these moments of clarity, hope, and inspiration. So let's get on with it. Today's guest is Dr. Sonja Jahn, and if you haven't heard of her yet, you're in for something really special today. She's one of the world's leading transformation specialists, a transpersonal counselor, holistic life coach, certified hypnotherapist, stress management consultant, an international best-selling author. With over 25 years of experience and a PhD in transpersonal counseling, Dr. Sonja blends psychology, metaphysics, and finely tuned intuitive skills with her proven Finally Free system to help entrepreneurs, founders, and leaders break free from the mental barriers, emotional patterns, and limiting behaviors that are getting in the way of what they truly want. Here to talk today about why fear and anxiety are not our natural states. Welcome, Dr. Jahn.
Thank you so much, Sue, and hello to everyone who's joining us here today.
Yes. So, Dr. Sonja, you believe that peace, joy, and calm, all wonderful things, are really our natural state. That's a pretty bold statement in a world where anxiety seems to be the norm. Talk to me about that. What led you to believe that?
Yes, so the truth didn't come from a textbook or any other book for that matter. It came from direct experience. So in 2002, I experienced samadhi, which is a higher state of consciousness, where there is no fear, no anxiety, just boundless bliss, peace, joy, and a connection to the divine. And since then, I've felt that same peace daily. And what's become very clear to me through my own journey and 25 years of working with others is that fear and anxiety are not your essence. Peace and joy and calm are your essence. Fear and anxiety are interference. They arise from emotional residue from past experiences that you've had that haven't been resolved. They arise from subconscious beliefs and unresolved inner conflict as well. And the interesting thing is that the example I've given to a lot of my clients is, imagine that you are like a shining bright diamond, and this diamond is covered by layers of mud. Now, these layers of mud are, as I've just mentioned, unresolved conflict and experiences and emotions. So when we engage with these and use methodologies to clear them completely, what happens is that these layers of mud are lifted. And more of the light of that diamond starts shining through the layers, which basically means that more of your true nature, which is your soul, okay, which is light and happy and calm, starts shining out. And it permeates your personality. It trickles into your aura, and it's noticeable to other people, particularly in your face, funny enough. So when you've done inner work, this is, quite hilarious when I tell clients this. I said, please take a before picture and an after picture. And they say, well, what for? And I say, well, you're going to look different once the fear and anxiety and any other emotions go. And when they see that, they smile and they laugh because they're like, oh, I didn't think this was possible. So that's why I'm saying it's not our true nature. Calm and peace are our true nature.
Was there a personal turning point? I mean, you mentioned this exercise that you went through, but was there some other experience where you realized that fear and anxiety are not things you had to manage, but you could actually just release them?
Yeah, so what happened when I started my practice 25 years ago is I didn't go public in the sense of, okay, let me tell people that I'm doing this work. And I couldn't understand that because people are going, well, this is transformational work. Why aren't you in newspapers and on the radio and the TV? And I looked at that and I realized I had a very deep-seated fear of annihilation. And you can go, well, what does that mean?
Right. I was just going to ask you
What?
that.
And I was looking at this and I'm going, well, what is that about? And I realized it's come from past lives in which I've come onto the planet and I've done similar work of uplifting humanity, getting humanity to become aware and awaken and realize that you're not the mind, you're actually a soul and you're having a human experience and you have a physical body that takes you through that human experience. And when I realized that I had this fear, I thought, you know what? This is not something to live with. You've got to clear this. It's got to go. So I
Hmm.
then managed to work with a hypnotherapist that whilst I was in training, actually to be a hypnotherapist, funny enough. And I cleared out the events that caused that fear. And then what happened is I no longer needed to cope with it. This is the beauty of this work, is that once the fear is gone, it's gone. It's almost like if you have a pot of boiling water and the steam accumulates, eventually the lid is going to blow. And once the steam leaves, the steam leaves. It doesn't come back in 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years, 30 years. It's gone. And it's the same when you release emotions, whatever those emotions are. It leaves and it leaves you forever. And then you know, keep peaceful, calm state again. So that's what happened to me. And I realized, you know what? One of the biggest missions that I feel I have to embark on nowadays is to share with people that is not something you need to live with. You can get rid of it.
Hmm. We're so often taught and told, just deal with it, just get over it, just manage it or cope. Why is that so harmful?
Very simply because coping keeps you stuck.
Mm, I can see
So
that.
we are so we are taught, and I'm saying this in the context of having walked a personal development path and spiritual growth path for the last 30 years. So I've seen what has been taught in the mainstream personal development arena, and I've seen what's worked and what doesn't work. So that's basically where I'm coming from. I'm not just, sucking this out of my thumb, but uh,
That's an
what I've
interesting expression. I love that.
And I've had clients come to me in despair, Sue, and sitting in front of me crying. And some of them have been even being angry, saying, I've been to a coach and I've been to an NLP practitioner and I've been to a psychologist and I've been given these coping tools. And why am I still feeling whatever the feeling is, whether it's a negative feeling, whether it's a past unresolved relationship issue that they haven't dealt with their parents or with their partners, whatever it is, the reality is, and we need to realize this, is that what coping tools do is to help you manage your particular, let's call it issue or challenge. And if it's an emotional one, what they do tend to do, okay, I'm generalizing, what they tend to do is they push your emotion down, which means that it's minimized and managed. It's still there. It's not gone. So now what happens is that when they use the coping tool, they feel a bit of relief, yes, for a period of time, and then this issue arises again. And what happens is that when you are managing an emotion in particular now, it burrows into your subconscious, and that's where it simmers and it resurfaces later, often stronger. And then it just hijacks, interesting enough, it hijacks the prefrontal cortex of your brain sometimes, where people become unconscious as to why they're all of a sudden in a state of rage when there wasn't the real reason for that. So coping is essentially, if I use an analogy, coping is like sweeping broken glass under under a rug. It might look like it's tidy on the surface, but every step you take still hurts. And you can't manage your way to peace, to calm, to happiness. You have to release those emotions that are standing in the way for you to get there. So another analogy, sorry, I'm full of analogies today,
No,
but
I love them.
I said to my clients when they're going, well, I've been told to let it go. And I said, well, let's look at that. Because a lot of us have been told, oh, just let go of the anger, let go of the anxiety. But what are we actually doing when we letting go? We are distracting ourselves and thinking of something else. So now I'm no longer giving attention to the emotion, I'm giving attention to something else. And now, let's say 3 hours later, I'm no longer feel that emotion. And then I'm thinking, hey, it's gone. And I'm going, no, you've just deluded yourself. It's not gone. It's gone into your subconscious, yes, where it will rise up again later, but it's not gone. So we've got to realize that the only way out of the tunnel is through. And it's the
Mm.
same with emotions. The only way to move out of emotions is through them.
And in one of your blogs, you talk about how emotions, even the negative ones, are really just energy that wants to be expressed. And I love that phrase. It made sense to me.
Yeah.
Talk to me more about this. What do you mean by that? And you mentioned that these negative emotions can like hijack our brains, and but tell me more about what actually happens to the body physically when we hold on to these kinds of emotions.
Okay, so hopefully you remember all of the questions you've just asked me. So if I lose track, just bring me back. But essentially,
We get rolling and then we
we can
lose
just
where
get
we're
rolling.
gonna go.
Emotion literally means energy in motion.
Mm,
So whether it's positive or negative, and or pleasant or unpleasant, whichever label you want to give it. And every feeling is a wave of energy moving through your body. Okay. And when we feel it fully, it moves. It's a sensation. Okay. Now, when we suppress it, that energy is pushed down and it's stagnant. So let's say, I'm just going to give you a quick example off the top of my head. Someone has anger, which they are pushing down. They've been told, just, let it go. And I think, okay, let me think of something else. Let me get busy so that I'm distracted and then this will disappear. So the anger essentially stays in the body. And what happens is very fascinating. When we become angry, and if you look at epigenetics and neuroscience, they've validated what I'm about to share with you, and they'll give you more details than what I'm going to be able to give you because I'm not a medical doctor. But when you look at, let's say you have an angry thought, that is a that is an energy. It's energy. It's movement. Okay. Now, in your hypothalamus, what happens is that negative energy relating to that thought is created. Now, that slushes through your body. And what happens is it moves into every part of your body. So if you were to imagine this is a human cell, you have receptor sites on the outside of that cell. And every receptor site connects to different emotions. So let's just assume this one looks like a V, this one looks like a U, this one looks like a triangle. They all have a different shape. But let's just assume here's your little angry chemical sloshing through your blood, and it hooks into that receptor site that's like a key into your lock. And now the energy of anger starts impacting on the functioning of the cell. So if you were to let's say visualize this. Let's just assume, well, not assume, because I'm clairvoyant, I can tell you that anger is very dark in color. So it tends to be brown or black. So let's just say that it's black, okay? And you have this anger moving into that cell and it obviously moves into all sorts of other cells. This cell is eventually going to carry black energy. Now, if you just think about this logically, how do you think that body's going to feel if it has black energy in it? And that black energy tends to be heavy. That means it's energetically dense. It's
mm.
probably going to feel tired, right? Or lethargic. That's what happens. So what's interesting is when I've helped people release anger, they tend to feel tired afterwards. And I go, that's totally normal because that energy was so stuck that now you're clearing it out of your system and it carries with it everything that is in alignment with the energy of anger. So what happens, let's say we do not clear out the anger out of the cells, and I've seen this with clients over the last 25 years, is it tends to manifest as a tumor of sorts. So I've had, for instance, clients who've had various types of cancer come and see me. And they've gone to seek, obviously, the physical help, but they also wanted to get rid of the mental and emotional cause of the cancer. And what I found is that it often relates to resentment and anger that has been suppressed over decades. And when they're aware that they've got that and they remove that, everything shifts. I remember I had a client in Germany who literally flew me to Germany to say, please help me, I've got breast cancer. We'll fly you up. And I was there for 10 days. And I remember in one of the sessions where we released the bulk of her anger that was related to her relationship with her mother. Black energy literally came out of her body. And I remember looking at this and I saw it coming out of her solar plexus and I saw it coming out of her face and her body. And I thought to myself, I'm not surprised that this kills people because it's not light energy, it's dark energy. So eventually that's what happens in the body. If we suppress emotions over a period of time, and we tend to add to those emotions because we're not engaging with life in a different way. We're not making different choices. In other words, we tend to react the same way over and over and over. What are we doing is we are adding more to that load and we're almost solidifying that load. Now, the body wants to get rid of emotions. So let me go back. I think this is one of your questions. The nature of emotion is for it to be expressed, whether it is pleasant or unpleasant. So when we're happy, we're going to express it. The same works for anger and the same works for fear. They want to be expressed. But what do we do? Because we feel so uncomfortable feeling them, we shun away from them and we try and distance ourselves from them. And most definitely, I've seen this over the last 25 years, we try not to feel them. And that's when we get in trouble because that's when it goes into the subconscious and it obviously sits in the body as well.
Mm.
Dr. Bruce Lipton, who's very well known for his research in epigenetics, has a beautiful quote. He says, your body is a reflection of your subconscious mind. So he's saying whatever has been repressed and not dealt with is reflected in the body and how healthy that body is or not.
That's fascinating. You divide unpleasant emotions into two categories, contracting versus expanding emotions. Can you break that down for me and help me understand why that's important?
Yes. So when I started on a personal development path, I was told, okay, you have positive emotions and negative emotions. And I think, okay, great. And then as I was starting to work on myself, because my biggest, let's say, emotional challenge was anger, coming from present life experiences, but also a lot of past life experiences. And I was taught, okay, you've got to go and physically release it. And I did. And it really helped. And I thought, this works. And then I was sad because a friend of mine had passed away and I was grieving. And I thought, well, let's do a physical release to get rid of those emotions. And they didn't. They didn't move. And I thought, well, there's something wrong here. If they're telling us that the way to get rid of negative emotions is by releasing them physically, then surely that should apply to all of them. And then through intense introspection and literally using myself as a guinea pig, I went, this is not working. There's got to be something here that I'm not seeing. So I went inside, and because I'm clairsentient and I can feel energy very easily, I looked at what does the energy of anger feel like in my body? And then I looked at what does the energy of sadness feel like in my body? And then I realized, well, hang on a second. Anger feels expansive and it moves inside the body. And then I looked at sadness and I looked at fear and I looked at grief and I looked at hurt, and they felt heavy and dense. And the energy felt contracting, like this is what you do when you're feeling sad, you're contracting. But
Mm.
inside the body, I felt that was happening to the emotions. And I thought, hang on a second. We actually need to categorize unpleasant emotions into two categories. One of them is expanding, what I call expanding emotions, and the other one is contracting emotions. So, what do I mean by expanding emotions? Are emotions like anger or frustration or irritation or annoyance. They have more energy. They move inside the body. So they must be physically expressed through voice, through talking, through movement. And what I say to my clients, through hitting a pillow. Fantastic exercise. Make sure your neighbors don't hear you when you do this, but it works like a bomb. So that's what I thought, okay, well, that works for anger. Fantastic. Now let me look at contracting emotions. And I remember I had a couple of clients who came to see me because their partners had passed away and they were grieving. And I looked at this and I thought, their whole body contracts as well. Your body contracts in a state of grief. You're not like this, you're like that. So I thought, okay, let's see what happens if I do with them what I did with me, because I used myself as a guinea pig. And I thought, let's feel that emotion and feel it even deeper. So, in other words, what I was saying to my clients is dive into the emotion. So the diagram that I use is like an inverse triangle. Let me do an inverse triangle. Can I do? There we go, an inverse triangle. Okay. So if this is the grief on top, I would want you to dive into that way. And the interesting thing about this triangle is that the bottom end is open. So what does that mean? The more you feel the emotion, the faster you go through it, the faster you're out at the bottom. And people can't understand this. They say, well, how long does this take? And I say to them, the longest I've ever seen this take, not that I've sat there with the time watch, with the clock watch and gone, oh, it's taken 1 minute for this client to release it. I don't do that. Trust me, I don't do that. But I just intuitively sense, well, it was a minute. People can't believe this. They say, what, you clearing grief in a minute? Yes, you can clear grief in a minute. But the whole point is, I'm going to say this again, the more you feel it, which means you dive deeper and you let yourself feel and cry and do whatever you need to, the faster you're through. And then once you're at the other end, you're calm and you're peaceful. So here's the analogy I use to explain this even better. If you were to look at a hurricane, a satellite photo of a hurricane, you would see the outer ring of the clouds, and in the middle, you would see like blue, which means it's quiet there. There aren't any clouds
Mhm.
there. So when you are in a state of grief, you're in that outer ring. So as you're moving through that and you're feeling the emotion, you eventually get to the center of the hurricane where it's peaceful and calm. And that's how you clear contracting emotions.
So how do we get there? How does this work? I
Yeah,
kind
what
of
do you
see
mean?
your inverted triangle. I kind of picture it as a funnel.
Yeah.
How do we get to the bottom of the funnel?
You literally just do what I've said. I know it sounds so simple that you're going to say to me, you're crazy, and validly so. Let's assume that I was in a state of grief. I would sit down, I would close my eyes, and I would think of the person that has passed away so that I'm in that state of grief. Okay. And if you look at it, Sue, where is grief felt?
In the heart,
In the heart. In the heart. So
physically.
you would essentially take your attention to the heart where you feel the grief, and you would let yourself feel that grief. And you would, when I say dive deeper, is like you literally go, okay, let me feel this more. Let me feel this more. And sometimes you can't because you're already out through the funnel and you're going, but I can't feel it anymore. It's because it's gone.
Okay.
It's that I know and sorry for saying this, I'm being brutally honest here. It's stupidly simple, but it works. But what happens with the average person, let me just say this to you, they feel a little bit of grief and then they go, oh, this is so uncomfortable. I don't want to feel this. And then they leave it. And I'm
Mm.
saying, go through it. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. And you might have to. I mean, I've done this in one sitting. I remember I had my last boyfriend pass away, and I did this in one sitting. Why? Because I practiced it before. I've had this with clients who've cleared it in one sitting as well. I'm not saying everyone's going to do it in one sitting. You might need two. So don't hold me to it and say it didn't happen in one sitting. You might need two because, and here's why. Because you've got to remember, the first time we feel grief, let's say as a 40-year-old, is not the first time we feel grief. We probably felt it when we were 15 or as a child, when a pet passed away or something. So the grief that we've buried will be given the opportunity to come up when we are grieving in the present about something. So this is why it's always good, I say to my clients, clear things and the emotions as and when they come up
Mm.
because they get stored in the subconscious. So what does that mean? It means that let's say as a 7-year-old, I buried my grief because I wasn't shown how to process it. And now here I am in my 20s and 30s, and I've buried it again, and now I'm in my 40s, and something's happened. I'm grieving about the situation, but at the same time, the subconscious is going, hey, there's grief. Let's bring out, let's clear out all the stuff that's been waiting to come out. And that's why it sometimes will not necessarily clear in one sitting. I have to, just call it what it is. But
Right.
that's how this works.
But one or two sittings to be clear versus 20 years of therapy to just cope
Mm.
and manage.
Yeah, look, let me say this as well, because I don't want people to think, oh, the only thing I ever have to do is sit down and feel the grief and it'll be gone. Sometimes you do need professional help, and I'm not talking about people who are just scratching the surface. I'm talking about people who access the subconscious. Sometimes it helps because you can't, I had a client who said to me, I'd like to clear all of my grief. I've currently got this going, but I'd like to clear it all out. And I said, okay. And then through regression therapy, we had a look at the different events in her life where she had buried grief, and we cleared it out. So you do need professional help when you're wanting to achieve a particular goal. But if you, for instance, in the moment right now saying, you know what, I'm grieving, and what do I do about that in this moment? That's the way to do it.
But you say that most therapy and mindset work only really scratches the surface as opposed to tackling the root cause of the problem. Talk to me more about that.
So let me just find an example. Let's pick this one here. This is coming to my mind. I've had clients who said to me, I like to be in control of what happens in my life. So they will try and control a situation, they will try and control outcomes, and they will try and control people sometimes. Okay. So when you look at this, what happens most in the mainstream, let's put it that way, because I have respect for everyone who wants to help others become a better version of themselves and feel better. In the mainstream, what happens is they are taught, well, you need to change that controlling behavior. And they're given tools to do that. That is the surface level. That will improve things a little bit, but it's not the root cause of why this person needs control. So you look at it a level deeper and say, well, what is motivating the behavior of control? And it's fear. And you say, okay, so now there's fear that's making this person control the outcome. Why? Because they want to avoid feeling something. And let's say they want to avoid feeling failure. Okay? They're not consciously going, I'm going to control the situation so that I can avoid feeling failure. No, they're going to go, so I can avoid failure. But what they're actually trying to avoid is the feeling of failure. Now we
Uh,
take that a level deeper and go, well, it's actually not really the feeling of failure. Because when you failed, how do you feel? Maybe embarrassed, hurt, most probably hurt, disappointment. That's what they're actually wanting to avoid feeling, are those emotions. So when we are given tools to change the behavior, we are scratching the surface. We need to go, what is causing this behavior? And that root is located in your subconscious. What do I mean by that? There is probably one experience, or there might be a couple of experiences in which there was a fear of not having control, in which they felt hurt, there was an outcome they didn't want, and now they decide, I'm going to control whatever I can so that I no longer have that outcome. But these experiences are only accessed when you go and you access the subconscious. Why? Because that's where they are stored. So the reason for accessing the subconscious is to get to the root of this particular behavioral pattern, which tends to be located in an experience that you've had in the past. And that experience caused you to have certain beliefs, that experience caused you to have certain emotions which weren't pleasant. And now you want to avoid feeling those emotions, so you're going to express a particular behavior to avoid feeling those emotions. But at the end of the day, you're going to carry on feeling them unless you go to the root of it and you remove and clear the emotions and beliefs around that particular experience that is stored in your subconscious. Does that make sense?
yes. Would it be fair to say that it's kind of like the difference between treating a symptom versus curing a disease.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the analogy I use with my clients is imagine you have a weed. I don't know if you can see my arm here. Imagine you have a weed, and let's say this part of the weed is above the ground, and this part of the weed are the roots, and it's in the earth. Okay.
Hmm.
So what happens is with surface level stuff of changing behaviors or reframing beliefs is that this is chopped off and it looks like, hey, it's sorted, but after a while it flips back up again. Why? Because if you look at a weed, if you just chop off the stem, it'll just regrow. It's the same psychologically. So
Right.
what
Any
we've got,
gardener
and
can
this is
tell
the
you
symptom,
that.
like you, to your point,
Right.
so this is the symptom level. So, dealing with the symptom level is we're just putting a band-aid on it. What we need to do is we need to remove the roots. And once you remove the roots of the weed is gone.
So you have bring several things into your practice: energy medicine, epigenetics, and I'm struggling to know how to pronounce this word. Psycho.
Psychoneuroimmunology.
Thank you. Thank you for rescuing me on that.
Oh, good.
Um, talk to me about what those mean and how they play into the work that you do.
So I've done research in epigenetics. I've read a lot of books on it, and my path essentially started with psychoneuroimmunology as well. Psychoneuroimmunology, essentially, if I put it in plain English, it means the body-mind connection. How do our thoughts and how do our emotions impact on the body? That's what that means.
Okay.
So when I started out 25 years ago, I read loads of books because in those days there was no Google. And I spent time in bookstores and just reading up on those things for me to understand how do we actually function at a mental, emotional, and physical level. And what's happened is it's shaped my work in the sense that I could understand, oh, this is what's happening mentally, like I explained earlier on with, chemicals are being produced if you're having an angry thought. And this is what happens in your body as a result. Because when I had clients presenting with, for instance, cancer, and I could sense that there was stuck emotion in there, I go, well, how does that emotion create cancer and how does that work? So that's how epigenetics actually helped me understand how things work better in our bodies and in our minds. And essentially what I've done is I've recognized through these two different fields is that emotion is a vibration and that clearing the emotional energy transforms not just the mind, but the body. And if you look at it nowadays, with everything that's been done in neuroscience, it confirms what I've intuitively known 25 years ago, which is healing is holistic.
We often think, when we think of people who are emotionally strong, it's the people that are resilient, who can just push through and not let their emotions get them down. But what does real emotional strength mean to you?
To me, it's the exact opposite.
I suspected that would be your answer.
It's, I was like that because that's the way we are conditioned. In fairness, we need to be realistic about this thing. We are conditioned and socialized to believe you just need to push through difficult situations and don't let emotions get in your way because they'll just distract you. And it's interesting because when I've done research on emotions in general, and I've looked at what is the primary reason why people don't want to feel their emotions, the answer that I got, I don't want to lose control.
Mm.
And I thought, that makes sense. At the same time, they will affect you way more. So you won't actually lose control because there's this erroneous belief that, oh, if I allow my emotions to come out, they will take over. No, you are allowing yourself to feel them. You are in control to which degree you allow yourself to feel them. Okay. So to me, true strength isn't about pushing through because that's basically saying I'm bypassing emotions, I'm suppressing emotions, I'm not dealing with them. It's about facing emotions with presence and courage. And it's the willingness to feel, to release, because that will make you feel fully alive. So strength to me is not, strength to me is when you stop numbing and start listening. Start acknowledging what you're feeling. Give it a name. That's the starting point. And then allow yourself to engage with it. And it's interesting because I've said I think I've used this analogy quite a lot with my clients. I say, whatever you run away from follows you. And when it comes to emotion, I'm saying it's the same with emotion. It'll follow you. So stop, turn around, face it, and embrace it. And by allowing yourself to feel, and obviously with some expert guidance in particular situations, you will be free. That's true strength.
So what becomes available to someone in their life, their relationships, their business, their health, their even finances? What is the impact when people are able to clear this emotional baggage?
Yeah. So as you've probably noticed, in our conversation so far, I'm not about managing any issues. I'm more about eliminating them. And that means going to the root of it in the subconscious and clearing it out from there. And what happens with my clients is that they experience a transformation. Now, transformation is different to change. Change is an improvement in a particular situation. But a transformation is like you are different at the end of that transformation to who you were before. And what's happened is that my clients don't just feel better, they become different. So when the fear is gone, the triggers are gone, the patterns have ended. And the beauty about this work that I do is that the change lasts. So they won't have to go and revisit this issue again in a couple of months' time or years' time. The beauty is that what happens when you look at people as a result of clearing these, let's call them inner layers, is they become freer. So there's not just relief, there's a change in how they feel about themselves. So just to give you a quick example, you have leaders who speak with confidence, not fear. You have entrepreneurs who were hitting an income ceiling and they were going, there's something blocking me. What is this? And now that they've sorted it out, all of a sudden they're like, let's do this and let's go here. So the income increases. I don't know about how many fold. I never ask people because that's my focus. But
Okay.
it the beauty about this is when you look at relationships, the connection deepens. The body is in a more relaxed state. When you look at, for instance, someone who's cleared away anxiety, their face changes because of the relaxation taking
Mm.
over. Okay, there's energy that returns again. Because remember, like I said earlier on, if you have heavy emotions sitting in your body, you're not going to feel as energetic as you could. So when that clears out, you're going to have more energy. And the nice thing about this is that peace becomes the default, not the occasional experience. So you stop reacting to life and you start creating it from a place of calm, of confidence, of peace. And you finally show up as the person that you were always meant to be.
I love that. We stop reacting, we start creating. I
Yes.
love that. For our listeners that may be feeling fear, anxiety, sadness, or other negative emotions right now, what would you say to them?
I would say this: you are not broken, you are not weak, and there's nothing wrong with you. And most importantly, you don't have to live like this. Fear and anxiety are not who you are. They were created by your mind in response to one or more experiences that you've had. And because these experiences remain unresolved, you carry these emotions with you. And they're also triggered by other experiences that you have in life. So the way out of the tunnel, as I've already said, is through. And there is a way to be free. I've helped thousands of people do it. You can do it as well. All you need to do is to make the decision to free yourself. And then find an expert who uses a proven method. And when you speak to that person, say to them and ask them, before you hire them, ask them, to what degree have you helped someone else free themselves of whatever the emotion is, whatever the situation is, whatever the challenge is that you're dealing with. And if you're happy with their answer, hire them. Because at the end of the day, the peace that you long for is already inside of you. And it's just waiting to be uncovered. And then you are free.
Well, I think we just had our drop the mic moment. I think the perfect thought to end this on and to for people to leave with. And thank you so much. This
Thank
has
you,
been
Susan.
really, I have learned a lot in this conversation and have some things I'm going to work on after we part. But
Wonderful.
this is fascinating and really new territory for me to understand. So thank you for sharing your experience.
Thank you for inviting me. It's been wonderful chatting to you, and I hope others take as much away as you have. I'm sure they will.
Great. Thank you. I don't know about you, but I learned so much from this episode. Dr. Jahn has been kind enough to provide complimentary access to her Clarity Guide, and we will provide that link in the show notes. If you'd like to learn more about Dr. Jahn, I encourage you to visit her website at drsonjajahn.com. That's DRSONJAJAHN.com. Thank you for joining me for this episode. Until next time.